Oh, right. It says we're live. So hello, everybody. Welcome to Pucknology Writers Room number 4. Today we're going to talk about free agency. I know that Pucknology After Dark did a free agency show already, but it was more Shark-centric, and this is obviously going to look at some of the other things that have gone on in the league, other teams, divisional teams, stuff like that.
The craziness!
The craziness. So basically, we're going to start off with the Sharks, though, just because I know that
I'm going to mute myself.
divisional team. That's fine.
Sorry, there we go.
I know that some people, I know like most of us didn't get a chance. I know Landy was on the free agency show, but most of us haven't had a chance to weigh in on the big Shark signings. So I guess start there, and we will go from there. So let me just find my notes here. Okay, so Sharks started off the day.
Tonight's panel.
Oh yeah, sorry. I guess you guys want to be introduced, don't you? Jeez, I'm just like, let's get this done. Okay, sorry guys. So with me on the show today, in this collectiveness of awesomeness, we have Kevin Lacey.
Hey guys, I am back from Shasta County, much tanner, and I'm going to pretend that I know what happened on free agency while I was gone.
Very nice. Other writer from Pucknology, we have Aiden Carlson.
What's up, guys?
And from Pucknology After Dark, we have Eric Landy.
Yeah, I'm here. You know, they couldn't get anybody better to be on, so here I am.
No, scraping the bottom of the barrel today. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly. No, it's good to be on. You know, seeing my my Pucknology brethren. So good to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to talk. We're going to start off with some Shark stuff, just because, like I said, we didn't really have a chance to weigh in previously. So I kind of want to get that out of the way, and then we'll kind of wander out into the rest of the league, so that all you Pucknology people can be smarter about things that are not Sharks.
But right, I mean, who really cares about anything but the Sharks? I mean, really.
Well, I know. I do. I need to know everything. I need to. All right. So I know Landy already kind of had a chance to talk about this, but we'll let him talk again. The Sharks opened up. They signed defenseman David Schlemko, who previously played with the New Jersey Devils. He got a 4-year with a $2.1 million AAV deal. How do you guys feel about this signing? I guess I'll start with Kevin.
I'm going to pull a Doug McClain here. Like the player, hate the contract. Everyone wants to complain over the years about Adam Burish's $1.8 million per season ridiculousness. Well, we are now paying, or the Sharks are now paying, for a number 7 defenseman $2.1 million per season. So if you guys are complaining about Brendan Dillon's contract, wait till we get 50 games out of David Schlemko and 30 games on the bench, paying him over $2 million when there were better defensemen on the market that got paid less.
Can I interject real quick?
Yes, yeah. Please do. I've got more, but I'm going to let you guys talk first.
I'm going to let you guys finish, but David Schlemko's the best defenseman on free agency. No, I mean, look, if David Schlemko is on the bench and we're paying him $2.1 million to be on the bench, that means one of two things. Either Dylan DeMello has morphed into the everyday defenseman we want him to be, or Mirco Mueller, you can insert either or something has gone really horribly wrong, and he is just that bad. So being more on the optimist side of things, I hope that he's on the bench for $2.1 million and that Dylan DeMello has morphed into the everyday defenseman we know he can be.
Aiden, go ahead.
Well, now, do we know, has it been said that Schlemko is going to be our number 7 defenseman?
No.
We don't know.
No? Okay. I mean, I could see, with Pollock on, I'm a little confused. I mean, I would have maybe stuck in-house for the number 6 defenseman with Pollock being gone. DeMello looked good last season. I think he could have filled out that spot. And also give like Mueller another chance. He spent another year in the AHL with the Barracuda to see how he's doing. I'm not sure that they really needed to sign him like 4 years, $2.1 million. I'm not sure we needed that. But I mean, the Sharks, it seems like they don't really have a whole lot of guys coming up, like top defenders coming up. I think that this may have been a move just to try and get someone that we could. So if someone gets injured, we can have another option. If Mueller doesn't pan out or if DeMello doesn't pan out.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I like that the Sharks have done is that I feel like, one thing that they've done well is nothing's earned in this system. Like, everything's earned in the system. Nothing's just handed to you. You're not just handed a spot because you're a first overall draft pick. So I think I kind of like the idea of Schlemko being there, so that way, it puts that extra pressure on Dylan DeMello. It puts that extra pressure on Mirco Mueller to really, if one of them takes that spot at a camp, they've won that spot. It wasn't just handed to them.
Exactly.
And I like that a lot. And then another thing here, I wonder if this is just if this is kind of lottery insurance a little bit as well, because it looks like they're going to extend Burns. They've already talked about extending Burns, which means you're going to have to protect him in the expansion draft. I assume that Vlasic and Braun are probably your other two defensemen that you're going to protect, other than Burns, which leaves a one Brendan Dillon open for being claimed in the expansion draft. And I wonder if this is kind of just somewhat insurance for that as well.
You definitely got to boost up that third pair. I should have prefaced it by saying I do like David Schlemko. I just that contract though. This is why Brian Burke says that the dumbest day of the year as a GM is July 1st, because people throw out ridiculous amounts of money for players that may or may not deserve it. And David Schlemko, if you look at his history, he had a pretty decent year for a bad New Jersey team, which is why he got picked up today. But last year he had to go on tryout in training camp just to get a contract with the Devils. The year before that, he was waived by the Coyotes, picked up by the Stars, waived by the Stars, picked up by the Blue Jackets, and then had to go through that whole summer before getting a contract. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. Look at Manny Malhotra. He was a tryout with the Sharks, and then he was awesome and deserved the contract he got with Vancouver. But I don't see David Schlemko being more than a depth defenseman, and that money I feel like can be used in much better ways. Brent Burns.
One thing that with Schlemko though is that he's fast. Is this just an overreaction to the cup loss, like where speed was put at a premium for Doug Wilson? Because I feel like Schlemko's a pretty decently fast skating defenseman.
Yeah, I think the other thing too that we also got to remember is what type of player is Brendan Dillon. And if you're thinking of tying Schlemko at the hip with Brendan Dillon, you've got to realize, well, Brendan Dillon is a, kind of a prototypical defensive defenseman. Doesn't really move the puck out of his own zone very well, but can handle the physical play, can move people out of his own net. So, the complement to that is to have a kind of a freewheeler, puck mover, quick defenseman. And so you're looking for a guy that not only fits as your sixth pairing defenseman, but more importantly is the yin to Brendan Dillon's yang. It's just you've got to look at the fitment of the player, and he was targeted by Doug Wilson as a person who could play in the event that DeMello or Mueller doesn't pan out, which I don't think. I think DeMello has a better shot than Mueller at this point in time. But it was brought up that, I would want Dylan DeMello to play 75 to 80 games in the CUDA if he's only going to be utilized for 20 to 25 games in San Jose. So, and I think that's money well spent. I think $2.1 million to have that insurance policy is money well spent. In my opinion, I to have the kids marinate a little bit longer, I think that's fine. That's an expenditure that I think is good.
Yeah, I also think that something else too with this is that maybe because I see Mirco Mueller spending another year in the Barracuda for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think you want to bring him up because he's a young defenseman that maybe doesn't have the upside that we all were hoping he had when he first came out of the draft, but. The last thing you want is Mirco Mueller to have a bang-up season and then lose him in the expansion draft. So I think there's that issue as well. Any final thoughts on Schlemko? I'm okay with the signing. I'll give him a chance and see what he brings before I really get down on the money or the term.
You should at least look, if you haven't seen his shootout goal with Calgary, you should at least look that up. That's
all right.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Schlemko before I move on? All right.
I don't think it was an overpayment as more than Brendan Dillon. I'll put it to you that way.
All right, fair enough. So the Sharks signed Mikkel Boedker to a 4-year, $4 million AAV deal. The contract was rejected, and the Sharks had to fix it. So just basically a quick thought on that, basically explanation on why that deal got rejected. So in the collective bargaining agreement, aka the CBA, there is basically a clause that says that the value of each year in a player's contract cannot deviate by more than 35%, which is contracted, which is why the NHL spiked it. So basically, but they got him all sorted out. He's under contract now, and everything's all good. Nothing's changed as far as the AAV goes. The money's a little bit different, but it all still works out. Overall thoughts on this signing? I will start with Aiden.
Yeah, I really like the Boedker signing a lot. I mean, he's had, I was looking this up before, in his past 3 seasons, he's had over 50 points in 2 of them. That's good. I mean, he's only 26, so when the contract ends, he's going to be 30. And he knows the head coach and the Sharks coach and everything like that. So I think that this is a good signing. It's a good depth signing. I could see him playing, obviously not on the first line, but second or third or anything. I'm thinking with this, it could be a Marleau replacement, possibly. I don't know. I mean, either way, I think it's. I think with him signing, we're going to have either Nieto or Wingels get sent down to the AHL or traded because of this now. Because they got. In my personal opinion, I think that he's better than them, and I think that he'd be. I think that he can really fit anywhere on the lineup.
Go ahead, Landy.
You know what? This to me screamed that Marleau is not the long-term solution at right wing or whatever wing spot you want to fill in on that second line position. Those days of him being a second line winger are done. Really, it's trying to find that complementary sniper to the playmaker that is Donskoy and the kind of overall two-way forward that is Couture. He screams second line winger to me, and I think that's the spot he needs to be in. And he's got 2 really, really good players that are going to complement his game very well. And this is a player that has never had an elite center play with him. This is a player who's never had an elite playmaker play with him. So he put up pretty good numbers last year, career numbers. And I would expect that we would see more of the same in this coming year.
Kevin, go ahead.
I thought it was a bit peculiar that he was one of the most coveted players, or at least talked about players, at the trade deadline, and then you heard almost nothing about him for free agent frenzy. He was a guy that I had my eye on for the Sharks, but it was very similar to Joel Ward last year, where it was like, yeah, that would be awesome, but it's not going to happen. And so I'm on my way up to Shasta, and my phone beeps and goes, Mikkel Boedker sends it, and I flipped out. I was like, oh my God! What you guys said is perfect. He's going to end up taking over Marleau's role in the way of he's got that speed. He can play both ways. He's definitely got hands. He's a guy that I loved when he was drafted. Things haven't panned out in the way of being a top draft pick, but he's had a nice career so far. And like you said, Eric, he has had no center to play with. Shane Doan at times has been his line mate on the opposite wing. It's going to be really fun to watch Boedker play on a team that's as deep as the Sharks are up front.
I want to address something really quick that's brought up in the chat that I think that it's a good point. But as a player on the Colorado Avalanche, he had some mixed results. I don't think you can take a trade deadline acquisition and just look at his little bit of a sample size with Colorado and say, oh, he had the time to gel with a number 1 center. And to be quite honest, Colorado's system is just garbage. I mean,
I agree.
they are just have no idea what the hell they're doing in their defensive zone, and offensively they're a rush team, and that's not the way Boedker plays. He's not. I mean, he can definitely rush, and he can definitely burn you on the rush, but that's not where he gets most of his goals. He gets most of his goals on the face-off dots. You know, he loves to kind of come down one wing or the other, take a really good snipe, and that's what he does. And he's got two players that don't really do that, and that can feed him the puck in those areas. That's why I think that this is a good fit for him on the second line, and why the other two centers that he played with, being McKinnon and Duchene, are definitely that they're kind of more what's the best word to call them? They're more guys that want to bring the puck into the zone, and they want to keep it really down low and try and feed somebody on a one-timer. Boedker's not really that kind of a player either.
Yeah. It's not that Matt Duchene isn't an elite. I agree. I think it's not so much that Matt Duchene isn't an elite center. He's an elite player for sure. It's that it's again. I think it boils down to system, and I think it just misutilizing him in Colorado. And then other than that, I mean, he's been mostly on a pretty stingy Phoenix team with Tippett coaching. So not exactly another great situation for a player like Boedker. I really like this signing. Again, this is a guy that's had 50 points. I think that he can easily get to 50 points again on the Sharks, and I think that, yeah, definitely to me it says that they're ready for what comes after this year. I don't think this is a signing for this year specifically. This is a signing for what's next, and that's what I like about it. And you can read the tea leaves about Marleau, what happens, but. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's gonna be good. I think that with Couture and Donskoy, I think that there's going to be some definite compatibility to the way that they play. Sleepy Mofo in the chat, I just wanted to get to this before we got too far. As Curtis keeps pushing the idea that Marleau is being burned by the organization, especially he's put on the third line. It's Curtis knows that he's gonna get hits if he talks about Marleau, whether he's talking about how the Sharks need to get under that contract, or just it's one thing or the other. It's like the Sharks need to trade him, or the Sharks are doing wrong by Marleau. I don't think so. I think that Marleau was really good on the third line. I thought it worked really well in the playoffs, and I don't think Marleau's the player that he used to be anymore. Is he a bad player? No. Is he is he maybe a Hall of Famer, maybe in a weak Hall of Fame class like this year? But he's just
hey,
not
do
the
not
same player
besmirch the
anymore.
good name that is Makarov, okay?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's true. It's not that I don't like Patrick Marleau. It's just that this isn't Patrick Marleau circa 2006 anymore. That's the difference. This is Marleau 10 years later. And Marleau 10 years later has started to run down a little bit. Is he still a good player? Yeah, absolutely. I just think that his role he shouldn't be as big as it used to be. And I think that, he's still a big name in this league, but I don't think he's a star in this league anymore. I think he's a very good player, but is he a superstar in this league anymore? No. I think a lot of it's based on reputation. So anything else on Boedker before we kind of move on?
You know what? Everybody keeps saying 5-on-5. His 5-on-5 numbers aren't great. His -33 is the worst in the league, and yada yada yada. But again, I don't think he's played on a good system. I don't think that he's played with the type of player he's going to play with, and I see him. I see him being more productive. I'm sure he's still going to be a minus player, mm-hmm. because that's just kind of the player that he is. What is it? Not Nichushkin, but somebody. Never mind. I was going to go with the joke. The Russian wingers don't back check. But, it's kind of like that. You can't really change that kind of a player. But what you are buying is points. And points are hard to get. And you're going to play, with two responsible two-way guys that can be good in their own end. I think you can have one liability on the line. But you can't have more than that.
Okay. So, just to wrap up on the Sharks before we get into the rest of the league, the Sharks. The one head scratcher for me was that they re-signed Aaron Dell. Now, I'm going to start this off, and then I'll let this go around the table so I can still think of this while I'm kind of going. But my issue with Aaron Dell isn't that Aaron Dell's a bad goalie. He's an unproven goalie at the NHL level, and the Sharks don't have a backup goalie that's proven at the NHL level. And to me, this year is just one of those years where this is the last year where you have Thornton, Marleau, Burns. We don't know which of those three are going to be back. I mean, I assume Burns will be back. Marleau, Thornton, we don't know. Anything can happen. And to me, this is when you want to really go for it. And we saw last year what happened with Alex Stalock, and I don't know why we're setting ourselves up for this again. Not that I'm saying Aaron Dell is as Alex Stalock, but he's not proven, and he's earned his shot for sure. He's absolutely earned a shot. I just don't like the idea of not going into the season with a proven backup when you're going all in like this. Go ahead, Kevin.
They might just wait out training camp for these teams that have 3 goalies.
Yeah.
And
that's where I was thinking.
Waivers or a cheap trade, something like that. And by then, you will know if Aaron Dell has proven himself during training camp. Troy Grosnick being on a one-way contract kind of plays a role into this. I honestly could see. I thought Grosnick was going to get bought out, but I could see Grosnick actually being the backup in name only to Jones to start the year. Let Dell have the starting role with the Barracuda. If he continues his hot hand that he had at the end of last season, Dell gets bumped right back up, and then figure out whatever happens to Grosnick. And Armalis becomes the number 1 goalie with the Barracuda. But I'm perfectly fine with Dell being re-signed. I was a bit surprised that Montoya didn't become a Shark, but the goaltending crop was weak in free agency this.
But I mean, I would rather go with Al Montoya for less than $1 million than at least he's a proven commodity over Aaron Dell.
I know some people have mentioned Jonas Enroth's name around, but I don't buy into that guy at all. So I'm actually happier with Dell than Enroth. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
The other guy that I thought was a little interesting was Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, I feel like he's pegged for Dallas eventually. Because I don't think Kemper is the kind of guy who wants to be a starter. He had his contract holdout a couple years ago. He wants to be a starter. He's not going to be a starter with the Sharks. Dallas is begging for a starter. So I just feel that that's where he's going to wind up, because the Sharks aren't going to want to pay not a premium, but a decent amount for someone to be a backup when Dallas can afford it.
Aiden, go ahead. We've kind of passed over you on a couple of times here.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with what Kevin and Landy were saying before. I mean, I could definitely see the Sharks were just, with after training camp and everything, these teams with 3 goalies or whatever, they can try and get a goalie who doesn't make it or something on the cheap, instead of paying at a premium price for free agency or whatever. But at the same time, I'm kind of with you where going into the season, I'd much rather have a tested goalie who I know, because when we got Reimer, we knew he's good and everything, like that. We're in good hands with the backup here. I'd much rather go into the season thinking that way and be like, okay, yeah, we got this. We're set with goalie here. We really just need to focus on defense here. Well, now, because I'd hate if there isn't a goalie or something, after training camp, we don't find anyone, and we do go with Dell or Grosnick, if they just kind of pull an Alex Stalock and are trash this year.
Yeah, and see, I guess that's the thing with me too, because going just through the goaltending depth in our system right now, you have Jamie Murray, who's probably going to be the ECHL starter. You have Armalis, Grosnick, and Dell kind of all in the mix for the Barracuda, whereas I kind of see, and Grosnick, in my opinion, has done nothing, especially at the AHL level. He was terrible last year. Like without Aaron Dell, that team doesn't win a game against Ontario. That team probably doesn't get into the playoffs without Aaron Dell last year. So yeah, Grosnick, I think it is a one-way contract, but it's not like it's stupid money. The Sharks can eat that money and keep him in the AHL. I just feel with those 3 in the mix at the Barracuda level, though, unless you send Armalis down, which I kind of feel like he's going to be, Barracuda bound. one of these guys has to be the backup. Like that's just, I don't know, that's just kind of the way I see it.
Someone going to development camp next week, please let us know how our Mollusk looks, since none of us have Sharks 365.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't even want to get into that because we'll just, the whole show derailed.
But seriously, I would love a report about our Mollusk at development camp.
Yes, please. If you anyone who's going to development camp, then awesome.
What about the guys that we drafted last year? I mean, where are they looking at as far as in the pipeline? Robinson and Rumpel, right?
No,
they're not going to get sniffed now. But I mean, like, I'm just looking to set up the pipeline in about a year and a half, 2 years.
Not even close. Okay, so Rumpel is Rumpel's been let go. I don't think he's been re-signed.
Yeah, Rumpel's gone.
Rumpel's gone. Now you have Mike Robinson and you have Jake Kupski. Both of them will be playing NCAA hockey if they haven't been. I gotta remember. They're both going to be in the NCAA next year, which means that obviously they're not going to turn pro without a guarantee of something, which there's no guarantee of anything for them right now. So let them play NCAA. Let them see if they get better. Hopefully everything goes, everything goes according to plans, and they come back.
So we're saying they're at least two years away.
Yep. Yeah, 2 to 3 years off.
So you've got basically now you've got Dell, who's got 2 years, you've got Grosnick, who's got 1 year, and you've got Armalis, who just signed an ELC. So you've got to bide your time basically for 2 years. That was my only kind of hesitation as to, well, why wouldn't you go out and get somebody who at least could be competent for the next 2 years? Because that you know at least that you have a safety blanket.
Yeah.
And I think that this move is, or lack of a move, is predicated by the fact Sharks are up against the cap. I mean, they have not been able to resign Nieto or DeMello, but both were tendered qualifying offers. And I looked at the PA announcement of who's going to arbitration, and neither of them are going to arbitration. So what I think is happening here is that DW is telling them, hey, we've got the contracts in the drawer for you. We're just waiting for the time to move a player, get some space. You guys are going to get signed. And I think that is kind of the reason why we haven't seen a move on the goalie front, in my opinion.
It's definitely a possibility here. I just want to take a quick peek at the Sharks contract before I move on. Wow, we got lots of contract room. Okay, so let's just kind of wrap up on this. Anything that kind of surprised you that didn't happen for the Sharks? Obviously aside from a backup goalie, who's the odd man out? Because in my opinion, someone obviously has to be out. To me, that's Tommy Wingels. Without a doubt, Tommy Wingels. If you can find someone to take that contract, because that contract is for the contract for production is not good. And I think that you can, I really think that Timo Meier's on this team next year, and I think Timo Meier can bring you everything that Tommy Wingels does and then some on a much cheaper contract. So Tommy Wingels to me is the odd man out. Anything else that kind of surprised everybody or anybody? I guess I'll go with you, Landy.
I guess the fact that we haven't seen a player move out yet is kind of interesting. I think if I were the GM, I would have already taken care of that and already put that kind of issue to bed, just so I could feel a little bit better about having some extra room to work with. But he doesn't, and so you've got to kind of wait it out until somebody's gone. But right now, I mean, we're sitting with $2.3 million, and that's not going to be enough to sign your two RFAs that you want to sign. I mean, I think that they want to sign Nieto, and I think that they want to sign DeMello. It's just a question of money in, money out. Somebody's got to go out. So I mean, like you guys were saying, Tommy Wingels definitely has the big target on his back. Now, who's gonna take him is gonna be the real question. He's 28 years old, making 2.5 against the cap. It's not horrible, for the kind of player he is, but his production is definitely kind of what's holding this up. So, it's just gonna be who's gonna move and how you're gonna make the room, and that's right now that's what I'm finding the most interesting about the Sharks is that that's this lack of movement on the cap.
Kill two birds with one stone. Move Wingels and or Nieto for a backup goalie.
Oh, I like it. Aiden, any thoughts?
I definitely think that the Sharks should try and shop Wingels to Montreal, because Montreal looks like they're taking some. They like to make some bad trades, so I think that we could probably get Carey Price as a backup.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and I'll take a slightly used Shea Weber.
No, I want nothing to do with Shea Weber's contract.
No, they'll keep half. They can keep half the contract.
Exactly.
Okay, well, now I'm warming up to it. Now I'm warming up.
Hey, and then look at it this way: if he retires, then Nashville's still on the hook for all that recapture money.
We'll try to get him to retire too after a couple.
Yeah, stick it to Nashville.
Yeah.
No, I could definitely see them though. I see them, the Sharks, now because July 1st has passed and everything. We signed a couple guys. It's all with training camp. I definitely feel like that they want to see how Timo Meier, Goldie, all those guys. I'm sure they want to see how they're going to do, and if they're if they're developed enough, if one of them if they believe that they can make the team, they're going to try hard to ship out Wingels. And or Nieto, but it's definitely I feel like Wingels is the front runner for being traded before the season starts.
Well, Nieto, we all got to remember though, Nieto is 23 years old. He's still got.
I'm sorry, I meant Wingels. That's my bad.
Oh no, but I mean, like, even if we do want to package Nieto and Wingels together, I mean, I don't think it's time to give up on Nieto quite yet. But I'm saying that he's entering in that danger zone of, he's got to prove it this year. That he's got something to give. So, he's in that kind of like, okay, move it or lose it kind of deal, because we've got kids nipping at the bud to get him, to get his job. So Nieto is to me, I think you try and get him for a 2-year bridge kind of contract. Hopefully you pay him less than 1.5 mil is kind of where I have it slotted right now. A 2-year at, maybe no more than $3.5 million, I think, is where I'm at with Nieto. But you know what? I think that, like I said, that Tommy Wingels is 28 years old. And, Slushy just had his goal output, but I mean, 16 goals, 15 goals, and then 6 goals. But you guys talked about a Montreal trade. That's actually not a bad idea, and I put it to you this way, because they were after Milan Lucic. And Milan Lucic, is kind of a similar player to Wingels. I mean, we can kind of stretch that a little bit, but Wingels is definitely hard on the puck. Has a power forward-esque kind of game. I wouldn't say he's a prototypical power forward, but he's got that kind of mold in him. He could definitely be a poor man's Milan Lucic.
Kevin, have you gone yet?
Let's talk about Milan Lucic.
Are we close to the bookend on the Sharks?
Let me just wrap this up. To me, to me it's Wingels that goes. Like I said earlier, the money for Wingels, you have guys in the system that can replace Wingels right now that are going to make less than Wingels. Wingels is obviously not a Peter DeBoer guy. He saw his ice time decrease to one of the lowest on the team. He's just not a fit here anymore, in my opinion. And I think that's why you got to move on from him. I think Nieto, I think Nieto's back. I don't hate Nieto. I think that you can give him a nice contract. I think the one thing that's great about the contract that he got was the contract that Hertl got was it kind of pushed the value down for all the other RFAs. So I think that Nieto's going to come in cheap thanks to that nice Hertl contract. And I think the guy that I'm surprised that's still a Shark right now is actually Barclay Goodrow. I thought that he might be moved at the deadline or at the draft.
You shut your mouths.
No. That I wanted to. I didn't feel like talking about Sharks anymore, but Barclay Goodrow is absolutely the guy that I think is the odd man out, because who knows why DeBoer doesn't seem to like him, but he has no role with either team next year.
He's NHL ready now. I think you could. He's not going to fetch you a huge return, but he could have fetched you something. He could have fetched you a pick at the draft easily. He can still fetch you something now. I think that Barclay Goodrow is the guy. Like, I like Barclay Goodrow a lot, but where does he fit on this team? He's just, now that with the Boedker coming in and possibility of guys like Timo Meyer making the team, there's no room for Barclay Goodrow.
Yeah.
I don't see a spot for him.
But I put it to you this way, though. I mean, do you want Timo Meyer playing on the fourth line or third line with Chris Tierney when he could be a first-line winger with the Cuda and, not have as many NHL bodies banging on him?
No, I do.
And rather have Goodrow, taking those kind of hits. I would personally give Timo a year in the Cuda, and if that means having Barclay Goodrow play with Tierney, I think that's good in my mind.
See, I don't mind it. I think that that's the game that Timo Meyer plays, though. He plays a heavy game. He's the guy's jacked. Like, I think he's gonna have no problem stepping into the NHL this year. And again, it's not that I don't like Barclay Goodrow. I just his value is never gonna be higher than it is right now. If you let him just waste away in the AHL for too long, then his value goes away. And I think that if you have an asset, like, this is the time when you use it. I don't see a spot for him on the Sharks. I don't see a spot for him on this year. I don't see a spot for him next year. I don't see a spot for Barclay Goodrow.
We're one Melker Karlsson injury away from seeing a Barclay Goodrow, or one.
Are we, though?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to.
Logan goes up though.
Well, it looked like that last year, but Goldie, wasn't really the Boer favorite either.
But I mean, again though, like last year when we saw players go down, it was Michael Haley coming up.
No,
and
well, that's
I checked,
just...
Michael Haley's still didn't he not get a new deal?
No, he got a new deal, and that kind of bothered me.
Yeah,
but...
so I don't know. All right, let's put this to bed. Anyone have any last angry thoughts here before we move on?
That's your gig, Eric. Or sorry, Ian. That's your gig, Ian. Yeah, I told you I'm really tired.
That's okay. All right, guys. So let's talk about, I'm not going to, obviously, we're not going to go through every last free agent signing bit by bit. I'm going to try and stick to the bigger names, and then we'll, after this, we'll kind of look at the division a little bit. So I basically just there's no specific order here. I'm not saying one player is better than another. I just kind of randomly grabbed the names that I thought were big names to me. So let's start. Brian Campbell to the Hawks for 1 year, $2 million. How does everyone feel about that? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, it was the third worst kept secret in the NHL, behind Las Vegas in the NHL and Tucson in the AHL. Everybody knew Brian Campbell was going back to Chicago. $2 million is such a bargain. He can still play second pair minutes for the Blackhawks. They've been losing defense. They've actually been bleeding defensive depth over the last couple of years because of salary cap issues. And Campbell is smart enough to recognize that the contract he signed with the Blackhawks the first time was so ludicrous. Now at that cheap rate, there's no way they're going to trade him out now.
Yeah, go ahead, Aiden.
Yeah, I think that this is a good contract for them to sign, because they still have cap issues. So for one year and $2 million to get another defenseman whose name isn't Seabrook or Keith, who can actually, he's definitely an improvement over Rosabal, who's I feel that he's a reliability on defense. Yeah, I definitely think that this is a good move by the Hawks here, a real good signing, and hopefully this should shore up some defensive problems for them. Just a little bit.
Go ahead, Landy.
Oh man, I wish we had that big Indian figurehead on the center of our logo, because then we could get elite defensemen for bargain basement prices. You know what? I mean, the guy still got the goods, and I loved Soupy. I think he's a really good defenseman, and you know what? He took a homeboy discount because he wanted to go back to Chicago and he wanted to kick it with the homeboys. So, I mean, good for them, because they got a hell of a player for a good price. But bad for the rest of the league, because it's like, come on, we didn't even have a shot at that.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what winning gets you, right? I mean, when you win 3 Stanley Cups in a bunch of years previous, this is the kind of things that people do. Brian Campbell, I mean, let's be honest here. Let's keep something in mind here. Brian Campbell is not a spring chicken anymore. He's
37, I think.
Yeah, he's 37, I think, turning 38. So he's closer to the end than the beginning. But to still get him on that deal, that's nice. I mean, and that's just kind of what the luxury of what winning, especially when he's already won there before. That's the luxury of what winning can get you. And when you look at guys they've tried to sign on the cheap that have just been a disaster, I think Brian Campbell's going to be a lot better than a Rob Scuderi or a Christian Ehrhoff, who they previously acquired.
Or a what was it? A Timo. What was it? What was the old trade that they got for from Philly? Hold on.
Oh, Kimmo Timonen?
Yeah, Timonen.
You will not besmirch the good name of Kimmo Timonen.
Love him.
But he was at the end, man. I mean, like he could not keep up. I mean, it looked like he had cement mixers for ice skates.
Okay, so James Reimer goes to the Panther, 5 years, $3.4 million AAV. Important thing to keep in mind here is Luongo does not have a no movement clause. So that really makes things interesting because this is a guy who is obviously going to share the net with Luongo for now, but Luongo's getting up there too. I think Luongo's 38 now.
Yeah.
He still has that contract for a bajillion years, I'm sure. But this is a guy that, I thought maybe they would protect Luongo because they'd have no choice, but now they could protect James Reimer and put Luongo on the market, although I don't know if a Vegas team wants to take a 38-year-old goalie with that cap hit still kind of counting against them forever. Thoughts on Reimer to the Panthers? Go ahead, Landy. I'll start with you this time.
You know what? This is a move that says, hey, we've got plans to talk for a post Luongo for the Panther team. That's what this one to me. This one says that Luongo's probably retiring in a year, maybe 2 years. That's what I think this one signals.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Love the deal for Reimer, for him personally, because he's either going to be the goalie of the future for Florida or the goalie of Las Vegas. So he's got his number one job after everything, or well, maybe not this year, but he's got his future number one job that he was trying to secure. The term is great. The contract is great. I really feel that the reason why he looked for such a long-term deal is because of the Vegas situation. And they probably lured him, the Panthers probably lured him in the sense of, well, we've got Luongo here. We may or may not keep him. Come here for a year. We've got this brilliant young team that's on the rise, and so you can take us, sit around for a year, fill in when you need to, or ride it out and then take over the reins. So great for him.
What do the Panthers have in the system? I'm not really familiar with the Panthers system. Do they have any goaltending up and coming? Yes. Nothing. Okay. I was just curious. I have no idea.
Oh yeah, the Panthers have nothing in the way of goaltending. So.
Yeah, they have a guy named Sam Britton, and then Samuel Montebayu.
Montembeau.
Yeah, and he's 19 years old, so he's kind of a young prospect that they are a little high on, but nothing too remarkable. I mean, I don't think you're going to see that kid for 4 or 5 years. So
right.
For sure. All right, Aiden. Any thoughts on Reimer to the Panthers?
And Luongo's 37. Just FYI.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I'm happy that Reimer got a long-term deal and everything. A little sad he's not going to be starting this year. I think he's a really good goalie, and I like his personality a lot. But yeah, I could definitely see. I could actually see where I could see either of those things happening, where he goes to Vegas or he stays. But I think it really depends with this last year how Luongo plays. Because if he plays he had a solid year, a solid season last year,
Absolutely.
and I think that if he has, and I think that if he has like another great one this year, I could see possibly the Panthers maybe extending him and then sending Reimer to Vegas because didn't Luongo start his career in Florida?
Islanders.
Yeah.
Islanders?
The Islanders and then went to Florida from there.
Okay, yeah. I mean, because I'm pretty sure that Florida likes him a lot, and I could see them wanting to stick with him for a while. Obviously, that wouldn't be great because he's getting older and everything, but I could see either situation going for Reimer. Where I mean, I definitely with Vegas and everything, he could be starting in a year or two.
Sorry, Ian, I want to just say
okay. Go ahead.
If Florida ends up keeping Luongo out of all of this, though, yeah, his cap hit isn't good. But in a couple of years, yeah, he's going to be $1 million salary for X number of years many years down the line. So that's still reasonable for a guy who is up in age but still producing. Go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing I wonder too is with this deal. I mean, $3.4 million. I thought he was going to get substantially more, to be completely honest with you. I thought he was going to be like 5.5, somewhere in there for Reimer. 3.4. It makes me wonder if he took less money. Maybe they have like a wink, nudge agreement that he's going to be put up for the expansion draft because Luongo. I guess Vancouver would get stuck with that recapture, but Luongo, that's where he wanted to be. Like it was basically the only place he wanted to go to when he was leaving Vancouver, which made it really difficult to get him to move. So they sent him to the Panthers, but at the same time, it's like this Panthers team that's an up and coming team. You have nothing else in the pipe. Like, would you really, eventually Luongo's gonna slow down. I mean, he's not even starting this year. Because he had surgery, which is gonna, have Reimer starting into like November, from what I understand. So
that's why Rado Barrel was acquired.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. All right, so let's move on. We got Andrew Ladd going to the Islanders, 7-year, $5.5 million AAV. Obviously, previously played with Winnipeg and Chicago.
Love the player, hate that contract. I mean that's a steep price to pay for a declining Andrew Ladd, in my opinion. And you know what? He's going to make the Islanders good for probably the first 2 years of that contract, but then they're going to be saddled down. And there's a kind of a reoccurring theme to a lot of these contracts in my mind. But once we start kind of wrapping it up, we can go over that. But yeah, I think this is just one of those deals that you kind of had to overpay to get him on the island. But I don't know that I would have made that deal.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think I really like Andrew Ladd as a player. I think he's a great player. I mean, yeah, he's 30 now, but there's still some hockey left. I like that there's only 2 years of no move, which obviously is like, yeah, you're not sending me to Vegas. And then he has a no trade for the rest of it. I don't think it's a terrible deal. I like what it does for the Islanders. I thought the Islanders, they lost some important pieces, and can Andrew Ladd make up for that? I'm not sure, but I do like what Andrew Ladd brings. Aiden, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Ladd, he's a good signing for right now. I wouldn't have gone with 7 years because he's gonna be 37 at the end of it. But yeah, like you guys were saying, first couple of years. He didn't exactly set the league on fire last year. I think that he was disappointing in the playoffs with Hawks had to get rid of like a first-round pick for him or something. So I do think he's on the decline, but he's definitely got a few more good years left in him. But yeah, I mean, if the Islanders aren't able to trade him or get rid of him, and they're stuck with him for these 7 years, I think that they could be regretting it down the line with this cap hit.
Yeah, because in about 4 years, I mean, $5.5 million, I mean, that's going to be kind of a big ticket to move. I mean, that to me, it's just too long for too old of a player. I mean, if it were me, I probably would have done like a 4-year and then just given him like $6 million a year.
It'll be interesting to see though what happens, because like 5.5, like, I mean, I remember when 5.5, like, that was like, wow, that's like a superstar contract, and I wonder in 7 years, are we talking about, superstar contracts being, the 9, 10, that we didn't necessarily see this year, but going forward, I'm curious to see if, that's the new, that's your new average middle six player. Go ahead, Kevin.
I like the deal for Ladd. For one, when was the last time the Islanders signed anyone to a 7-year contract in unrestricted free agency? Like, they don't lure players via free agency. So the fact that they were willing to do that, recognizing we've got Tavares, we've got young guys coming up. They lost Nielsen. I can't remember who one of their other leaders. Okposo. They lost him. They brought in Ladd. They brought in Chimera. They brought in a lot of quality leadership. I do worry about the wear and tear on Ladd further down the road, but that's further down the road. I don't think he's declining in the sense of he's just declining. I think he has peaked, but he can still provide several quality years for the Islanders. And he's a multi-role player, so I'm perfectly fine with that for the Islanders. I like that move.
But you're paying for, let's just call it what it is. I mean, a player who had 46 points last year, and you're paying him $5.5 million for 7 years.
Well, you went from Winnipeg, who's a little, offensively starved, and then you go and you take a significantly smaller role on the Blackhawks.
Yeah, but then the year prior he had 62 points. Okay, that's really respectable. 54 points the year before in Winnipeg, 46 the year before that in probably his best season because he was on almost a point per game pace. But I mean, you can see this career trajectory is just kind of falling off, and it's only going to get worse. And I just think that I don't know. It seemed like a reactionary move to not getting Franz Nielsen back, or maybe missing out on Steven Stamkos or something like that. That's what that it screamed. It smelled like desperation to me.
All right, so let's get to the one that everyone wants to talk about. Milan Lucic to the Oilers, 7 years, $6 million.
Oh my God! All right, I've got stuff on this, but so Aiden, I want you to go first because I'm going to rail on this one. Oh, there's another one too.
I don't think it's a good deal. I'm hoping. I actually wrote about this before. I'm hoping that the Oilers, they signed him because they just wanted to get him. That way he'd be off the Kings where he couldn't spear people as much. Probably wouldn't get paid to do it. And I'm hoping they're just going to send him straight to the AHL so we don't have to deal with him anymore.
Kevin, Milan Lucic. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. I just think
go ahead, Aiden. Go ahead.
Okay, I just think 7 years for a guy like Lucic, I think that they, how much was it again? Sorry, my notes are here.
$6 million.
A year for pretty much. I mean, he's good. He's he's a good player, but he's like an Andrew Shaw type. He's a gnat. He's meant to get in other players' heads. I don't know if $6 million for 7 years is good for that type of player.
It's $6 million annual, but this year with his signing bonus and the contract being front loaded, he's going to make $12 million. And next year he's going to make $12 million, and the next year it drops to 10.5. But I mean, that kind of money for Lucic, give me a break. I know he was talking on TV about McDavid influenced me absolutely, blah blah blah. I would love to see McDavid's response be, please trade me now.
Yeah, I mean, before I get to you, Landy, I'll just hit this quick. To me, Lucic to me is he's a big angry gorilla, and I don't think you pay big angry gorillas $6 million. I don't know. I don't think he's, his offensive output isn't that fantastic. You can definitely find someone who can still play and hit people for cheaper. I don't get it. I don't understand. And when you consider that you just traded, Taylor Hall to the Devils, and then this is like your big hey, everything's gonna be okay. We've got Milan Lucic. there's two big lies in hockey, and there's and I'm gonna let you guys guess what they are. The first one I always say a lot. Anyone know what my first lie in hockey is? All right, the first lie in hockey is the original six. The second biggest lie in hockey.
The arbitrary six.
The second biggest lie in hockey is this point when there was respect in the game.
Oh.
It never happened. There was never respect in the game.
Are we talking about how like Phil Esposito loved to like nutshot people and stuff like that?
Yeah, the good old days when players had no helmets and they still hit each other and over the head.
Or Bobby Hall, that good upstanding citizen that he is.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, Lucic. I guess you can say like Lucic will be like a deterrent to protect your young stars. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work. I mean, I could rant about that for hours and I won't. But just remember those two big lies: the original six and respect in the game. Both of them are bullshit. That's it. Landy, go ahead. Try and be somewhat quick though.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'll be quick. I just want to know what the hell Peter Chiarelli was smoking that day. Or the span of a week, because it looked like he just had a peyote trip and he's like, I'm gonna remake this team in like the weirdest way. And it does not make sense. This is a team that is about speed. It's about finesse. It's about getting Connor McDavid and centering the puck on him, and he's going to be the focal point. Milan Lucic, I don't know how the hell you guys think Milan Lucic is going to keep up with any of their forwards. Like, he's going to be the anchor that drags that first or second line down, like massively. And I think that Milan Lucic is smoking something really good if he thinks he's going to play his career with Connor McDavid. I don't see it. I think it was a splurge by Peter Chiarelli. I think it was one of Peter Chiarelli's boys that he wanted back. Mm-hmm. And I think it was dumb. And I think that it was one of the big factors for why Taylor Hall has gone on that team. And I think it's stupid. I think it's utterly stupid. And I think the guy is a moron. I think Peter Chiarelli is a moron.
All right.
Wait, can I say something real quick?
You can absolutely go for it quick.
Thank you. Landy, do you not think that Milan Lucic and Taylor Hall are going to have the same offensive output?
No, I don't. And I honestly believe that Taylor Hall will probably have more points in New Jersey than Milan Lucic will, and even if he is on a line with Connor McDavid. They're not going to be able to. They're going to have to drag his slow ass all around the ice.
All right.
I don't see it.
What I was going to say was that don't worry, because when Lucic falters, they can bring up their second line left wing, Patrick Maroon.
All right, Franz Nilsson to the Red Wings, 6 years, $5.25 million AAV. To me, this was like one of the bigger, most underrated signings of the day, in my opinion. I thought that the Red Wings obviously were all in for Stamkos before Stamkos re-signed with the Lightning before free agency even happened, and I really like this deal for them. I think that is it gonna fix all the what's wrong with the Red Wings? No, but I think this was one of the more underrated signings of the day. Go ahead, Kevin.
I think it was the most underrated signing of the day. I don't know what it is about Nielsen, but Nielsen in Detroit, that just seems like a good fit. And I almost feel like he's the perfect replacement for Valtteri Filppula, who they lost several years ago.
That's a good comp. That's a really good comp.
Guy, similar build. Both centers, Filppula can play wing, but both centers, they can play both ends of the ice. They both have underrated puck handling skill. I don't know. There's just a lot of similarities there, and I feel like it's just a natural fit that Nielsen plays for Detroit. Love that signing.
Go ahead, Aiden.
I think that this was a good signing by Detroit. Like you were saying, they really want Stamkos. Didn't get him. He stayed with Tampa. But I think they got him 6 years, $5.25 million a year. He's good. He's a great offensive player. I think that this was one of the better offensive guys other than Stamkos that were going to be available for free agency. And after losing Datsuk and clearing all the space, I think this was a real good signing. They didn't get him for a massive price. They actually got him decently cheap. So I like this sign a lot. I think that this was a good move by the Red Wings front office.
Yeah, the only thing that would concern me is I guess the age, because he's already 32 and that puts him up to what, 38. So I mean that's a little bit of a concern with that money, but at the same time though I really like the game he plays. Go ahead, Landy, wrap this up.
Yeah, no, I think it was a reactionary signing to not getting Steven Stamkos, but I think that it wasn't a bad reactionary signing, because there are some of those reactionary signings that are like, oh shit, he just overpaid for that player because he didn't get the big ticket item and they had to make a splash. I think that they had I think that they had that kind of a moment, but this is not a player that's going to come back and bite you in the butt. That it's like, oh my god, we just gave this guy $5.25 million. And we're going to be stuck with him, and we're going to be stuck with a bad player for all this time. I don't think he's going to be a bad player, and I think he's going to be productive probably till about 36, 37. Maybe that last year and a half might be kind of rough, but for the amount of money and the player you're getting, I think it's good.
I like it. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This one I didn't like at all. David Backes to the Bruins, 5 years, $6 million AAV. I don't know on what planet David Backes is still a $6 million player, let alone for the next 5 years.
I can play devil advocate on this one. So if you guys
go
want
first, and then I'll let everyone else.
Yeah, I did not think that this was as bad a deal as everybody else did. I mean, look, I like David Backes as a player, and I think he's going to fit well in Boston. They needed a player of his ilk to come in and really merge that dressing room, really give it a good, cohesive place to go. And they weren't out of the playoffs by much last year. So a David Backes really does help them, push them back in the right direction, gives them that big bad Bruins label, and helps them reignite that. I don't like the term. I think the term is a little bit of an issue, but if that's what he was going to get, I mean, somebody else was going to give him that amount of money, and the Bruins did. I like the player, and I like the fit a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense. But maybe it's too long by a year or two, but I don't think it's horrible.
Kevin,
where do you guys think Boston are heading? Like, where are the Bruins heading? Are they rebuilding? Are they what?
I see them.
I said the toilet.
Honestly, I see them. I see them as New York maybe 2 years ago, where they just are holding on to that window being creaked open. They're trying to grasp at the last straws of Chara, and they've got Tuukka Rask still, so they can be competitive. But I think in 2 years it's gonna look real bad.
The danger with that, though, is becoming the next Philadelphia, where you're holding on, and you're not making the playoffs anyway. And that's the one thing about I like the Backes fit for Boston, too. But it's just peculiar for him to leave St. Louis, a team that went to the conference finals. Mm-hmm. And, by the way, I did tell you Blues fans that Backes was not going to re-sign. I got ripped apart on Twitter for that, but he didn't sign with the Blues. But I don't know. There's something going on there. Because Backes isn't from the Northeast, right?
Backes is from...
I don't know. It was a weird...
He's from Minnesota.
Yeah, he's from Minnesota.
Minnesota. Roster-wise... Yeah, I guess he fits, but I don't know if they're going up or down right now.
Well, I think for the next 2 to 3 years, I think they're on the right track. I mean, look, you got David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, and David Backes up the middle. That's damn good for the Eastern Conference. And the Eastern Conference is crap outside of Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. I mean, all those guys are in the 30s, but 2 years, I think it's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It doesn't, honestly, this signing doesn't really matter, because if Backes is good enough and he does get his production up from last year, Boston's probably just going to trade him for some picks.
Oh, jeez. That's fantastic. All right.
No,
go ahead.
No, yeah, I agree. I think the term is too long. He had his worst offensive year of his career, I think, since his first year or something like that. I think that they overpaid and they have him too long.
Fair enough. Okay. Next up, we have David Perron going back to the Blues. Not really an expensive deal, 2-year, $3.75 million AAV. I'll just quick hit this one quick. I was kind of surprised the Ducks didn't bring him back, considering some of the players that the Ducks have signed in the last couple of days. David Perron was a big catalyst for that team's turnaround, and I'm really surprised that they let him, and maybe he just wanted. I mean, it's free agency for a reason. Maybe he just wanted to go back to St. Louis, but I was surprised that the Ducks. I mean, you figure for 3.75 AAV, the Ducks could have done that. So I mean, I'm not complaining because to hell with the Ducks, but I was surprised. Landy, quick hit on this one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Perron had a really good chemistry with Ryan Getzlaf, and that's hard to find with him. He's one of those players that it's going to be kind of hard to find players that kind of mesh with him. And when you find those players that mesh with him, you got to keep them. And I think that Bob Murray made some really idiotic moves this summer. I mean, like some real dumb moves, like what the hell. Mm-hmm. But I mean, David Perron goes back to a team that he knows, and maybe the money just wasn't there for him. But I think the Ducks kind of screwed the pooch on this year.
Aiden, go ahead.
I'm not sure why the Ducks didn't keep him. I mean, he had in 28 games he had 20 points with them. It's pretty solid, and they let him go. I don't know. Good for St. Louis, I guess. I mean, he had 25 points in 2012 and 13 season with them last year. 25 points, 42 the year before. So we'll see. I don't know. It should be all right, I guess.
Kevin, anything you want to add?
I just wanted to say that it was a peculiar theme for free agency. Perron, Brian Campbell actually started it, and then it moved on to David Perron, where faces in familiar places, because Campbell went back to Chicago, Perron went back to St. Louis, Anton Khudobin went back to Boston, Teddy Purcell and Jeff Satkoff went back to Los Angeles, Chris Stewart went back to Minnesota, Roman Polak went back to Toronto, P.A. Parento went back to the Islanders, and Nate Cannon went back to the Ducks.
That's true. Wow. That's true. All right, going on to the next guy. So Kyle Okposo to the Sabres, 7 years, $6 million AAV. I love this contract, and I hate that the Sabres are. I think that the Sabres are probably, with this most recent thing, I have a funny feeling that they're probably done with Evander Kane. Kyle Okposo is a nice little leap from Evander Kane at this point. I really like it. If they don't get rid of Evander Kane, then maybe it makes their top, maybe they've got a little too much flash in their top and not enough oomph. But I like this deal. I really thought that it was going to be the Wings that were gonna get him instead of getting Nielsen. But I like Kyle Okposo. Is he a $6 million player? Again, I'm not 100% sold he's a $6 million guy, but that's what those kind of guys are going for. So, Aiden, go ahead. Kyle Okposo to the Sabres.
I do. I like the deal. I think 7 years maybe a little too much for him, but I mean, over the past 3 seasons, he has had over 50 points in all 3 seasons, and in 2 of these 3 past seasons, he's had over 60 points.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a really good player, and I actually think that with him going to free agency and all that, I think that he was worth, or Buffalo thought he was worth $6 million. I'm sure he was getting offered that from some teams. So I think for the guy that you're getting $6 million for every year for now, I think that's a really good deal. If he shows a decline in the later years, I think that's going to hamper him down a little bit. But for now, I like the deal a lot.
Landy.
7 years for a 28-year-old. I mean, not that bad in my mind, because he's going to be 35 by the time he's done with that contract. I mean, that's before Patrick Marleau, is going to get done with his contract. So, you know what? A good signing. Like the player a lot. It's going to fit in really well with the kids that they've got coming up. He's going to give them kind of a what's a good mentor to look to. Really good all-around kind of player. Like the signing. Good signing.
Kevin.
I like it. I got none more than that. I like this. They needed some wings, and they got a wing, a top line wing, no less. So.
And I think that was my thing too. Is I know that Okposo had played some with Tavares, at least a little bit. I've seen him play with Tavares, so I was kind of curious to see like what his numbers would look like without Tavares. But you're gonna either play with Jack Eichel or Ryan O'Reilly. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan Hamhuis to the Stars for 2 years, $3.75 million AAV. That's not a terrible deal. I mean, the Stars obviously need some defense. Stars are really, to me, are the most curious team going into next year because
really
you lost Goligoski. You lost on the defensive end. I mean, what do you?
I have a more curious team, and I'm surprised we haven't brought it up yet. But I know where you're going with this. Defensively. They lost to Mers and they lose Goligoski. Those are pretty big losses. And Dan Hamhuis makes up a little bit of that, but I still think that there's a pretty big hole there. Mm-hmm. And this was a team that was kind of exposed on the defensive end in the first place. So you gotta wonder.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
That one really raised my eyebrows. Dan Hamhuis was a hot rumor to be going to Dallas at the trade deadline, and he even waived his no-trade clause to facilitate a trade to Dallas, and then for whatever reason, that never happened. I know that Jim Benning said Dallas changed their mind about it, but I don't know. I feel like they should have gone with Hamhuis over Chris Russell when they needed a more defensive defenseman. So very, very interesting that Hamhuis decides in the end, Dallas is where I want to be. I think the trade deadline really set the tone for where he wanted to sign with.
Aiden, anything you want to add on this quick?
Aiden, Dan Hamhuis?
Oh, sorry. Dallas? Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is all.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think. I mean, regardless, I think that. After losing Demers and Goligoski and all that, and I mean, you still have Lettinen and Niemi on defense who kind of fall apart towards the end of the season. I still don't think that this is going to be enough for them. I mean, he's a good defenseman, but I don't think it'll give them a push to really make the cup or anything like that.
All right. We're gonna have to just fly through the rest of these here. Just really quick thoughts. How about Thomas Vanek getting a chance to prove himself in Detroit on a one-year show-me deal, $2.6 million? Kevin.
I'm over Thomas Vanek.
Yeah, me too. Landy.
Yeah, same. I just you know what? He's done.
Okay, Aiden. Any thoughts beyond that?
No, not much.
I think it's a nice low risk deal for Detroit. I don't think it really kills them if it's 1 year. If he doesn't do anything, then you walk away, and if he shows that he can be something again, then maybe you give him a little more money and a little more term. But I think that it's a good deal for them. Jason Demers, 5 years, $4.5 million AAV with the Panthers. Kevin.
Wow. Jason Demers got a nice contract there, and he's going to a nice team. I'm a bit perplexed by it in the sense of they got Yandel and they got Demers. Aren't they? Now you're overpaying for two players that can be mediocre in your end.
Yeah, Lindy, go ahead. Just
that blue line's gonna be damn mobile. That's all I gotta say about that. That's gonna be that puck is gonna get out of the defensive end real quick, and that's a good thing. I mean, they've got Yandel, Demers, Kindle, Ekblad, and whoever they want to piece together. But I think that's going to be a nice little core, and they've got a goaltending too. So I think they've got the back end nicely sewn up.
Aiden.
Yeah, no, I think that with the whole, all three signings defensive signings that the Panthers have had, I think that their defense is probably going to be their strong spot this year, which is really good for the team. They really overhauled it this offseason, and I think it should give them a nice push.
Awesome. Yeah, I think look at Jason Demeris to the Panthers. To me, it shows that they value the mobility obviously, and they're in it now. I know they've got a pretty, the Panthers have a pretty decent prospect pool. So these guys are obviously going to do blocking, but I think that this just shows that the Panthers they're in it to win it. They're not there to just get there. So I think whether it works out or not, I don't know. I'm not that high on Jason Demeris, but good for them. Eric Stahl to the Wild, 3 years, $3.5 million AAV. Go ahead, Aiden.
I think that this is one of those signings where it's like the Wild are like, what else do we have to lose? Like, what do we really have to lose here? I think this signing, I feel like, because Stahl, he kind of disappointed in New York. He's out of Carolina. His best years are behind him. But I think the Wild here, they're hoping, because I think they need another center, and I think that they're hoping Stahl can fill in as a number, maybe on the second line or something like that, and get some goals, and hopefully a change of an actual, like, having, with training camp and everything, getting to know the guys a little bit more and coming in before the season starts. I think that the Wild are hoping that maybe this is kind of almost like a culture change, where a player will all of a sudden, he'll find a spark with the team and really find his game again.
Kevin.
I don't get this. I don't know what you want to talk about. I don't know what Boston's doing. I really don't know what Minnesota's doing. Yeah, they needed Eric Stahl. They need a hell of a lot more than Eric Stahl. They have only 2 or 3 prospects that are any good. They have had an AHL team that has finished in last place 3 years in a row, and they have very little forward depth. They can't score. And they lost Parisi during the playoffs, and what did they do? I don't know. Nice for Eric Stahl that he got a contract, a decent contract, because he's on the decline. Minnesota is going nowhere, and yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, I'm with you. Landy, go ahead.
Good for Alex Stalock getting a contract, though. That would surprise me.
Hey,
Yeah.
He can backstop that last place AHL team.
Yeah. Totally agree. No, I mean this team and one other team had the two most in limbo general managers, in limbo thinking, like, have no idea where the hell they want to go, what they want to do, what their team is going to look like. I mean, Zach Parise is getting beat up like no other. That contract looks horrible. Mikko Koivu is on the back 9 of his career. Pominville, again, back 9 of his career. I mean, this is geriatric central here. I mean, you thought that San Jose was bad. I mean, this is bad. I mean, they're top 6. I mean, you've got 4 guys over the age of 30, 2 guys over the age of 33. This does not look good. I mean, this is like Sharks circa 2 years ago, where it's like you're just looking into the abyss in a year.
Yeah, I don't hate the signing. I think that I don't know if I'd have gone, like, it's not a huge money contract, which is nice. I mean, this is easily buyoutable. I don't know. I mean, I guess that, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Eric Stahl can do with the possibility. I mean, he was really good on a really bad Carolina team before his play dropped off into the abyss with the team. I'm curious. I don't think this is going to be great, but I'm curious. All right, so
morbidly curious.
It's kind of morbidly curious. So we're gonna end on this. We're gonna have to. We'll look at the division in a future show, because we're running really long here, and I don't want to run this much longer. So I will wrap this up with Alexander Radulov. $5.75 million with the.
That wasn't where I wanted to end. That was not the team I wanted to end with.
I know who it was.
And I wanted to laugh so hard.
Maybe you can still laugh. We'll see. We're running really long here.
I agree. Radulov, you know what? I guess Montreal was flush with a little bit of money they were saving from PK Subban. So what are you going to do? You're going to make your well even more toxic, and you're going to put a enigmatic Russian winger who is going to stay hard. And you know what? Some of those clubs in in Montreal are going to have a whole lot more business now. That's all I'm going to say about that. You know the clubs I'm talking about, Ian.
Yes, I do. Aiden, go ahead.
I think that I don't know. I think that Montreal, they got rid of PK Subban to bring in like a new generation or whatever, set a new tone, and then they bring in a guy who likes to party every single night and got in fights with his team or whatever. So no, definitely they're really doing well with this whole culture change thing. He's a good player though. So and I think I think that they gave him a 1-year deal because they want to see how it goes with the team. If he's changed at all, if he's maybe found some discipline. So I believe that if he does have a good year and he works well with Montreal and the coaches, he could be getting a big contract from these guys.
Kevin.
Alexander Semin 2.0.
See,
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think I disagree with that a little bit. Radulov can flat out play. Yes, the KHL is an inferior league. There's no argument there. But this guy can play. He can flat out play. He's probably, in my opinion, one of the best players that currently wasn't playing in the NHL in the world. Kovalchuk also being up there. I think that, but that being said, yes, the guy can play, but you have a team that basically said they, PK Subban, cancer in the room, whatever, and then so to bring characters with better character in, you sign guys like Alexander Semin and you bring in guys like Radulov. I think it just shows that PK Subban being anything but character is obviously horse crap. It's absolutely horse crap, and if you're buying into this Montreal media talking about that doesn't make any sense, because if it's really about character, then how the hell does Radulov get a contract in Montreal?
I really think that Montreal's media just needed someone to complain about for the year, so that's why they brought Radulov.
I think Bergevin is going to burn for this. I don't see him being there in 2 years. Just going to put that out there now.
All right. So in a future show, I know there's some players we left off that signed within the division. We'll do another show.
Vancouver!
You want to talk about Louis Eriksson?
Yeah, not just Louis Eriksson, but that whole organization. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have no prospects. You trade. You do dumb moves during the season. You give a dumb contract to a player that, let's face it, I mean, he's a complimentary piece on a good team. I mean, you really think that the Sedins are going to have a career year with Louis Eriksson next year? You guys are smoking some real good stuff that Trudeau has got legal up there, man.
It's not legal yet. We're working on it.
Okay, there you go.
You can't just wave a wand. There's laws and there's things you have to do.
You're Canadians. You can wave any kind of wand. You don't have laws.
We don't have laws. All right. Obviously, guys, want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank everyone for watching. So now you already know what the next show is going to be about. We're going to really kind of break down. We're going to go really in depth in the division. We're going to talk about additions, subtractions, what we think of the other teams in the division, who we're scared of, who we're laughing at, who we're indifferent to. So stay tuned for that. Probably, I don't know, a couple weeks or something like that, I'm thinking. So until then, thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions or anything about the show, obviously, tweet at us. You can find Mr. Kevin Lacey at Kevin. What's your Twitter?
At Kevin Lacey 22, and you can also find me in Gilroy, California on July 17th for Premier Professional Wrestling. Get your tickets online for $10.
Eric Landy, tell them where they can find you.
They can find me at Eric Landy. You guys all know me and love me from Pucknology After Dark. I've got a story that I wrote for an essay that probably will go on the site sometime soon. It will be my Pucknology.net, premiere or debut, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah.
Aiden, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at InPucknology. I mainly just write for the site, but I have another site that me and my buddies run on our own, where I cover all sports, called Top Cheddar Sports. You can check that out anytime you want.
Perfect. I'm Ian Reed. You can find me at iReadPucknology. Reed spelled R-E-I-D like my last name. You can also find my writing on Pucknology.net, and if the site proves that it's going to stay up for more than 3 days straight, I might actually write something again.
Hey, there was a back end fix. Hopefully, it's good.
Just to give everyone a quick update on that. Basically, there's been some background hardware stuff been done, and looks like it's holding up so far. We're also going to be changing the layout of the site to try and basically, we think the problem is somewhere in the layout, so we're going to gut the layout. So brand new Pucknology.net coming soon. In the meantime, you can listen to Teal Tinted Glasses next week. Will be the last one for the summer. And yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching. Subscribe. Yes, you can find this podcast in all Pucknology podcasts. Now we are going to start doing all of us in audio format. So even if it's on YouTube like this, Pucknology After Dark, I will be taking the audio, and I'm going to be putting it on the SoundCloud, so you can look for it, just Pucknology Podcast on SoundCloud. You can also find it now on Google Play, and iTunes will follow at sometime soon. Alrighty, that's it. I'm ending this. Goodbye, people.
Good night, guys.
This is over.